3:55 a.m. August 11th, 2025. Arzamas, Russia. The Arzamas Instrument-Building Plant, which produces critical guidance systems for the Kh-101 cruise missile and supersonic Kh-32s, faces the risk of being completely destroyed by 4 low-cost Ukrainian FP-1 drones, and Russia's air defense systems didn't even bother to respond. Days earlier, Ukraine's intelligence wizards using recon drones and satellite imagery sniffed out the plant's weak defenses, barely a few jammers and no S-400 in sight. The front lines have become a meat grinder for Russia's most advanced air defense systems, and Moscow simply doesn't have enough to protect both the front and its critical rear echelon factories. Russia sent its best defenses to the front lines, leaving the crown jewels wide open. So what was left protecting this vital factory, the B-team? A handful of lower-tier systems, likely some short-range radar and a Krasuka-4 electronic warfare system, basically a giant radio jammer designed to give drones a migraine. This intelligence changed everything. Why waste a multi-million-dollar missile when the front door is wide open and only guarded by a sleepy mall cop? This is where the genius of the Ukrainian plan came in. They decided to send in their special teams unit. This wasn't a full-scale assault. It was a perfectly designed trick play. A small coordinated force of just 4 FP-1 drones, each costing only $50,000, was the perfect tool. It was a unit big enough to guarantee the touchdown, but so small and unexpected that Russia's second-rate defense wouldn't even realize the ball had been snapped until the drones were already in the end zone. They were exploiting a fatal vulnerability, born not just from bad tactics, but from Russia's failing grand strategy. Pulling off a 500-mile deep penetration strike on a shoestring budget required a radical approach. The answer wasn't to go over Russia's air defense, it was to go under it. The entire special teams unit flew the whole mission at a butt-clenchingly low 40 feet, following the contours of the earth like a race car hugging the track. But flying that low for that long presents a million other problems, from power lines to random barns. The solution was a simple AI navigation system. This wasn't Skynet-level brainpower. It was a basic obstacle avoidance package programmed to do one thing perfectly: get the drone to its target without hitting anything. It was essentially a Roomba of doom on a one-way mission. The system used preloaded digital terrain elevation data, or DTED, allowing it to navigate in a complete GPS-denied environment. It was flying blind, guided only by a 3D map of the world loaded into its memory. Newton would be proud. 03:20 hours. The 500-mile low-level sprint is over. On the operator's screens, the GPS coordinates lock onto the target complex. This isn't just some factory. This is the beating heart of Almaz-Antey's missile division, a critical linchpin in Russia's war machine since 1957. Inside, 6,000 workers churn out the high-tech brains for Russia's deadliest weapons: the K051M guidance systems for the 3500M Kh-32 and the BDG-1M gyroscopes for the long-range Kh-101 cruise missile. The mission wasn't just to hit a building, it was to perform a lobotomy on Russia's entire long-range strike capability. As the drones cross the 20-mile perimeter, the electromagnetic spectrum lights up. A massive energy spike floods the operator's displays. Russia's only real defense wakes up the Krasuka-4, a $20 million electronic warfare system designed to create a 180-mile bubble of pure static, frying the electronics of anything that gets close. Notice what isn't here. No S-400s, no Panzer missile systems. As Ukrainian intelligence confirmed, Russia's premier air defense assets are too busy getting turned into scrap metal on the front lines to protect their own crown jewels. So Russia's plan to shield its missile-making heart relied on a single $20 million Krasuka-4 jammer, like guarding Fort Knox with a rusty padlock. The Krasuka-4 unleashes its full power, a digital tidal wave of jamming energy designed to turn the drone's electronics into scrambled eggs. But on the Ukrainian operator's screen, something amazing is happening. Nothing. The video feed from the FP-1s is crystal clear, the controls perfectly responsive. Russia's $20 million electronic ghost just tried to scare a machine that doesn't believe in ghosts. Here's why. Ukraine knew the Krasuka-4 was the only real threat, so they engineered a solution that makes it completely useless. The drones are guided by fiber optic cables. You heard that right. It's the same basic technology as the internet cable running into your house. Russia was trying to jam the Wi-Fi, but Ukraine was plugged directly into the router. You can't jam a physical wire. But this created its own problems. The fiber optic spool adds weight and significant aerodynamic drag, reducing the drone's top speed and maneuverability. It's a digital leash that leaves a physical reflective trail in its wake, making post-mission escape impossible and requiring the operators to relocate immediately. It was a high-risk, all-or-nothing bet on guaranteed connectivity. Yet the real genius was in the numbers. Why send 4 drones? Because even if the Russians had guns, their systems are designed to track 1, maybe 2 targets at a time. The simultaneous arrival of 4 drones from slightly different vectors completely overloads their decision-making process. It's like a linebacker facing 4 quarterbacks throwing at once. It's not a question of skill, it's a question of impossible math. This is the core of Ukraine's strategy: maximum impact for minimum cost. By targeting a critical supply chain component, the irreplaceable brains of the missiles, instead of a hardened launch site, they're not just destroying a factory, they're crippling the production of hundreds of future missiles for a cost that's probably less than 1% of the damage they're about to inflict. Just as the drones began their terminal attack runs, a new threat emerged. Not a missile, not a gun, but something invisible. A non-kinetic pulse of pure electromagnetic energy, an EMP, erupted from a hidden generator near the plant. On the operator's screen, the feed for Drone 1 flickered, dissolved into static, and then went dead black. The 440-pound drone, its unshielded electronics instantly fried, tumbled from the sky and slammed into an empty field. 1 down. For a split second, it looked like Russia's last-ditch defense had worked. But this is where Russia's lucky punch ran headfirst into Ukraine's brilliant engineering. The EMP was a desperation move, and it couldn't stop what was already in motion. The other drones in the unit were completely unaffected, their fiber optic command links acting as a perfect shield against the electromagnetic pulse. Russia had tried to take out the drones with a lightning bolt, but they were already grounded. This is where Ukraine's ace in the hole was revealed. For the final half-mile run, the drones weren't even listening to the operator. They switched to a fully autonomous AI mode using onboard visual recognition to compare the live camera feed to stored satellite imagery. The AI didn't need a radio signal, it just needed to match the picture. Drone 2 lined up on the main production building, its 200-pound thermobaric warhead armed. It slammed into the roof, and the subsequent explosion didn't just punch a hole. It unleashed a massive overpressure wave that shattered the delicate assembly line machinery like glass under a sledgehammer. Seconds later, Drone 3, guided by the same onboard AI, ignored the burning building and streaked towards its own target, the main component warehouse. It smashed through the thin metal siding and detonated, turning tens of millions of dollars worth of finished K051M guidance systems and BDG-1M gyroscopes into a cloud of vaporized electronics and molten metal. All the while, the Krasuka 4 was still dutifully blasting the empty air with static, a deaf guard dog barking at a silent alarm, completely oblivious that the robbery had already happened. With the factory already burning, the last drone streaks in for the kill. Its camera feed is a vision of pure chaos smoke pouring from the shattered roof of the main assembly hall, the bright orange glow of a secondary fire raging in the component warehouse. This drone's target wasn't production or parts. It was the industrial equivalent of a kick to the groin, the facility's main fuel storage tanks. On the ground, the first 2 drone strikes have already plunged the facility into chaos. Strobing emergency lights flash erratically across the complex, illuminating scenes of panic. A skeleton crew of night shift security guards, the only souls for miles, are scrambling in the darkness, shouting into radios that are likely filled with static from the nearby Krasuka 4. But the sky above them is silent. No Zu-23-2 cannons spitting tracers. No last-second missile launches. Nothing. The entire defense of this critical national asset has been completely and utterly paralyzed. They spent $175 billion on their Golden Dome air defense, and it turns out they forgot to install a single damn machine gun at one of their most important weapons plants. The drone's POV camera locks onto the massive cylindrical tanks. The crosshairs are steady. The AI has control, and its only job is to fly straight and true. The final countdown begins on the operator's screen, a silent, inevitable finale to a perfectly executed plan. In just a few seconds, the 200-pound thermobaric warhead of the drone will be armed and ready to turn what remains of the Arzamas Instrument-Manufacturing Plant into a high-tech scrapyard. At 3:56 a.m., the final FP-1 drone ceases to exist, transforming into a thermobaric warhead that detonates inside the fuel storage facility. The initial blast wave rips through the air at thousands of feet per second, creating a pressure spike of 15,000 psi that shreds the thin steel of the surrounding tanks like they're made of soda cans. Hundreds of miles away, the operator watches the screen flash white and yells, "That one was for Kyiv!" A secondary fireball erupts. A massive fireball of ignited jet fuel erupted, painting the night sky orange with roaring flames, and announces to the entire region that the Arzamas Instrument-Making Plant is officially out of business. Russia wants to build more cruise missiles. They're going to have to start with Legos first. This wasn't random destruction. It was a physics lesson delivered at 200 miles per hour. The first two drones' thermobaric warheads didn't just explode, they created a sustained high-pressure blast that pulverizes delicate electronics and turns precision machinery into twisted junk. The subsequent fire burning at over 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit melted the circuit boards of any surviving K051M guidance systems, ensuring nothing was salvageable. The final drone strike on the fuel depot was the knockout punch, guaranteeing the fires would burn for hours. When the first reports came in, they were dismissed as hysteria. A frantic call from a local fire chief, not a red alert from a billion-dollar command center, was the first sign that something was catastrophically wrong. The initial assessment from Moscow: an industrial accident, a gas leak, anything but the truth. Because the alternative, that a handful of Ukrainian drones had just flown 500 miles through their airspace undetected, wasn't just embarrassing, it was impossible. But then the evidence started pouring in. Security camera footage showing a low-flying object, drone fragments found in a field a mile away, their serial numbers tracing back to Ukraine. The real panic in Moscow didn't start with the fire. It started with the radar logs. When officials demanded the playback from the Regional Air Defense Network, they were met with a terrifying, deafening silence. There was nothing. No blips, no warnings, no alerts. It was like a bank discovering it had been robbed, only to find out the thieves hadn't picked the lock or blown the vault. They had simply walked in the front door because no one had bothered to guard it. The horror wasn't just the damage, it was the cold, hard realization that their entire $175 billion Golden Dome was a lie. They had been completely, utterly, and humiliatingly outsmarted. The final math is staggering: 3 successful drones at a total cost of around $150,000 inflicted an estimated $20 to $30 million in direct damages and months of production delays. That's a return on investment of 200 to 1, and the real damage is strategic. Without a steady supply of BDG-1M gyroscopes, a KH-101 missile is just a high-tech brick. It can't maintain a stable flight path, let alone navigate to a target 700 miles away. Ukraine didn't just break a factory, they broke Russia's ability to wage long-range war. Ukraine just proved that you don't need billions of dollars to defeat a giant. With a few cheap drones, a lot of courage, and a brilliant plan, they delivered a knockout blow to the heart of Russia's war machine. So what do you think? If you were the mission commander, which target would you hit first, the main production line or the warehouse full of finished components? Let me know your tactical analysis in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because next week we're doing a deep dive on the fiber optic tech that made this whole thing possible. See you then.